Almost everyone talks to themselves. Some do it silently, a private voice moving behind the eyes. Others whisper without noticing. Some argue out loud, alone in a kitchen, rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet, or replaying one that already did. We treat this as harmless, a quirk, something we do but never really question. But stop for a second and look at it directly. If you are the only person in the room, and a voice inside your head is speaking to you, explaining things to you, sometimes even scolding you, who exactly is talking? And who exactly is listening? That question sounds simple. It isn't, because the answer leads into one of the strangest, least understood corners of human psychology, a place where language, identity, and self-awareness all quietly collide. Here's where it gets stranger. In 2014, psychologists at the University of Wisconsin conducted a study asking people to complete a task, either silently or while repeating a single word out loud. The people who spoke, even a meaningless word, performed measurably better at controlling their impulses than those who stayed silent. A sound, a simple utterance, changed their behavior. That result should unsettle you a little, because it means the voice in your head isn't just commentary. It appears to function as a control system, something that actively shapes what you do next, not just how you feel about what you've already done. So before we go further, we need to ask the real question underneath all of this. Not simply why we talk to ourselves, but what exactly is doing the talking when there's no one else in the room to talk to? To understand that, we have to go back to childhood, long before any of us remember consciously choosing to speak. Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky, working in the 1920s, noticed something almost every parent has seen but never fully explained. Young children narrate their own actions out loud. A toddler stacking blocks might say out loud, "This one goes here, now this one." No one taught them to do this directly. It emerges on its own. Vygotsky proposed that this outward speech doesn't just describe what a child is doing. It helps organize their thinking. Language, in his view, starts as a tool for communicating with others, but young children haven't yet learned to separate talking to organize my thoughts from talking to be heard by someone else. So they do both, out loud, at the same time. And then gradually something shifts. As children grow older, that same organizing speech doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It becomes internal. Vygotsky called this process internalization. The idea that the quiet inner voice adults use to think isn't something separate from spoken language. It's the same tool, just turned inward, hidden from the outside world but still doing the same job it always did, helping us plan, evaluate, and guide our own behavior. If that's true, then the voice in your head right now, the one possibly reading these words back to you as you go, isn't some mystical inner presence. It's language, doing exactly what language has always done. Except now, the only audience is you. But this raises a deeper, more uncomfortable question. If your inner voice grew out of communication, out of talking to other people, then in some sense, are you still performing? Are you, even now, alone, still speaking as though someone else might be listening? Some psychologists believe the answer is yes, and they believe it might not be a flaw. It might be the entire point. Ethan Kross, a psychologist at the University of Michigan, has spent years studying what he calls chatter, the repetitive, often anxious inner dialogue that spirals when something goes wrong. A failed interview, an argument replayed for the 100th time. Kross found something curious in his research. The pronoun people use in their internal speech changes how effective that speech is. When people talk to themselves using I, saying things like, "I'm going to fail this," their stress levels tended to stay high and their performance often suffered. But when people shifted to using their own name, or the word you, silently coaching themselves the way a friend might, something changed. Stress dropped. Performance in several of Kross's studies improved. Think about what that means. The exact same brain, holding the exact same problem, produced different emotional and physical results, depending only on which word it used to address itself. That's not a small detail. That's evidence that the inner voice isn't simply reporting your mental state. It's actively shaping it, in real time, based on how it's framed. And this leads somewhere even more unsettling. If switching a single pronoun can change your stress response, then who is the you being addressed? If part of your mind can talk to another part of your mind as though coaching a separate person, then perhaps the comforting idea of a single, unified self isn't as solid as it feels. Neuroscience seems to support this uncomfortable possibility. Brain imaging studies have shown that when people engage in inner speech, areas of the brain associated with language production activate, largely overlapping with the regions used for speaking out loud. But other studies have found that self-directed thought also activates regions tied to social cognition, the same networks we use when we're trying to understand another person's perspective, their intentions, their mind. In other words, when you talk to yourself, your brain may be using some of the same machinery it uses to model other people. Some researchers propose that this isn't a coincidence. They suggest that self-awareness itself may have evolved from social awareness, that the ability to understand your own mind might have grown out of the earlier, more ancient ability to understand the minds of others around you. If that theory holds, it means something remarkable. The inner voice you experience as deeply, privately yours, may actually be a byproduct of evolution shaping us to survive in groups. We didn't evolve to be alone with our thoughts. We evolved to communicate, to predict others, to be understood and to understand. And self-talk, in this view, is simply that same ancient social tool, turned inward once there was no one else left in the room. But not every scientist agrees on how far this goes. Some researchers push back on the idea that inner speech is purely social in origin. Philosopher and cognitive scientist Peter Carruthers has argued that inner speech may play a more fundamental role in reasoning itself, allowing humans to hold complex thoughts in working memory, to sequence ideas, weigh options, and simulate outcomes before acting. In this view, talking to yourself isn't just emotional regulation or leftover social wiring. It might be one of the core engines of human reasoning, the quiet machinery that lets us think several steps ahead instead of reacting purely on instinct. Two very different explanations, and both are still actively debated. One frames self-talk as fundamentally social. The other frames it as fundamentally cognitive, a tool for logic and planning. Most researchers today suspect the truth involves both, tangled together so deeply that separating them may not even be possible. And there's one more layer to this, a layer that turns the whole question personal again. Not everyone experiences inner speech the same way. Some people report a constant, vivid internal monologue, full sentences, running almost non-stop. Others report almost none at all, describing their thoughts as wordless impressions, images, or abstract feelings rather than language. This difference even has a name now, gaining attention in recent research. Some psychologists call the absence of inner speech anendophasia. People who experience it aren't broken or unusual in any concerning sense. Their minds simply process thought through a different channel, which means the voice you may be hearing right now, narrating your own reactions to this very sentence, isn't universal. It isn't the only way to be human. It's one variation among several, quietly shaping how you experience your own existence without you ever choosing it. So where does that leave the original question? Who are you talking to when you talk to yourself? Maybe the honest answer is that there isn't one single you doing the talking and one single you doing the listening. Maybe what feels like a solitary inner voice is actually the echo of every conversation that built you, absorbed from parents, from friends, from arguments, comfort, criticism, and love, replayed endlessly inside a mind that never fully stopped needing an audience. We call it talking to yourself, but maybe it's closer to something else entirely. Maybe it's the sound of every person who ever shaped you, still quietly present, still speaking, long after the room has emptied. And if that's true, then the next time that voice rises up inside your head, mid-decision, mid-doubt, mid-argument with no one else around, it might be worth pausing for just a moment, not to silence it, but to actually listen. Because you may not be as alone in there as you think.